That was my favorite.
So a shop called us and they called us and said, "Hey, we have a theft recovery vehicle and the guy stole it and a can of bear mace blew up in the back seat. And I can't have my guys in there until that gets cleaned up." I don't know what it is, Ren, but for some reason I always get stuck with these jobs where it's like I have no effing idea how to deal with that. Harrison, off you go. And that's usually how it ends up. So I went there, put on a full top to bottom hazmat suit thing, goggles, gloves that went up, almost up to my elbows. And I just scrubbed the crap out of that thing and extracted and spent probably a good 2.5, 3 hours on it. Got it looking pretty dang good. They were happy. Then I went home that day and I must not have covered everything on me. I had a little bit in the front of my hair and I went in and took a shower. And I'm telling you, it was like out of a movie. I'm not even joking you. Like just full on. I'm sitting there. I go up to wash my hair. It falls into my eyes, and I fell over. I'm serious, just like a movie. I grabbed the shower curtain and just just shower curtain rings just flying in every direction. And I'm just like, ah!
That is awesome.
Nicole came running in. She went and grabbed a bunch of milk and poured it all over my face. It was bonkers.
I have a similar story, but I was cutting jalapenos and just putting them in my egg omelet or whatever before work. And I jumped in the shower, didn't wash my hands, dude. I was blind for literally 45 minutes. I was like, I literally can't see. I'm gonna be, I don't even know, like a half hour late. And I got written up. When I got into work, they like gave me like a formal like tardy notice or whatever that is.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I would have died. Like, anyways. So I have a little bit of a story. Unless you have it's movie related. But the other night or last night, I started watching a movie called Videodrome. Have you guys ever heard of this movie?
I haven't, but I saw your review on Letterboxd or your star rating. And I was like, oh, okay, this must be a big deal.
It's the slimiest film I've seen in a long time. I called you this morning, Harrison, and I just kind of relayed to you that I'm feeling like really anxious. And it's because of this movie. I watched it before I went to sleep. And dude, I just could not go to bed. I woke up just cranky and just trying to keep my eyes open. It's a haunting film, and it's a new genre of horror film that I have never seen. It's body horror. Have you ever heard of this?
Oh.
Yeah. But it's John Cronenberg, the same guy who did The Fly, which I know you're a fan of. I have not seen it yet.
I mean, fan used loosely.
Yeah. you mentioned it. Yes.
It gave me trauma, and I think it's a slimy movie.
Yeah.
It's a slimy movie.
So now I need to see The Fly, but I'm just one of the most incredible movies, Videodrome, one of the most incredible movies that I will never recommend to anyone watch. It was wild. I didn't know what to expect. And for those who've seen it, I mean, those who know. But great movie, but don't watch it. Unless you're ready. You have to be mentally prepared, spiritually, physically. Don't walk in expecting to have a good time either. But a great movie.
So I've been watching more movies now because of this podcast than I have in probably 10 years. And it's kind of messing with me similarly. Like I wasn't able to clean Detroit Rock City out of my brain until I watched RoboCop.
Gave it a formal rinsing. That's awesome.
I had to cleanse my palate with something
good.
What was that?
This may be my next rabbit hole, just body horror films. It's gonna get ugly.
I will say that does kind of open the door to like you watch a body horror movie and you're like, I want to know how they did this. Like get into the background, get into the the special effects of it or the practical effects of how they did it. That's always a very interesting topic to me because I don't know, it's just like the experience of them trying to figure out how to do something is really cool to me because for me, like sometimes when I watch a movie and like a real quick example is Willow. There's a section of the movie where they're on top of this mountain and it's covered in snow and everything. And when you read the background, it's like, oh yeah, they had to like chopper everyone up to that thing. It took a couple hours to get everyone up there. They did that every day for like 2 weeks straight. And I just feel like if I was like the director of a movie, I'd be like, that sounds like a lot of effort. I don't know. Like, is that really worth it? Let's just change the scene. So it's really cool just to see how far and what limit they'll go to in order to get a shot or to do a scene or something like that. It's really cool. So especially when it comes to body horror, it's like they put a lot of thought into it.
Making a film is literally insane. Like, yeah, just kind of what you're talking about. Just like, I get the director every night is probably just like, do I really need this scene to tell the story? Because this is a pain in the ass. I'm freezing. The actor that I hired ain't doing what I imagined. Like, and then it's a wild world. It's insane.
No, honestly, right along with that, actually here in RoboCop, there's a scene, I guess, where someone throws a pair of keys at him and he catches them. And the way the costume was set up was his hands were actually like a rubber or something like that. And the keys kept landing in his hand and bouncing off of it, and he couldn't catch the keys. And I read a little trivia about it, and it was like, yeah, it took 50 takes. It took a couple hours to get it. And in my head, I feel like after 10 takes, I'd be like, all right, let's just do something else. Like I just feel like I wouldn't have the patience for that. So just, I don't know, props to anybody who's been in a movie that does something like that or goes through that experience.
I'm going to mangle you green slime balls.
Let me set the scene, okay? Alex Murphy, a squeaky clean cop, gets brutally turned into Swiss cheese by a gang of futuristic thugs. Soon, a shady mega corporation scoops him up and Frankensteins him into RoboCop, a crime-fighting cyborg with a heart, or at least a memory of gold, and a prime directive to serve the public trust, protect the innocent, and uphold the law, even if it means shooting bad guys in the crotch. Ultra-violence and hilarity ensues as RoboCop tries to remember who he is while dishing out justice with witty one-liners and some truly impressive head explosions. It's basically a commercial for extreme consumerism mixed with a whole lot of robot punching. It's 1987's RoboCop. Scott, this was on your list. Great choice. I don't want to say anything else, but I want to give you the floor. Just kind of give us a background of your history with this movie, this amazing movie.
So my dad went to school. He's a film major, a communications degree to work in motion picture and television production. He did not use that degree in work at all. He kind of like did that, worked a couple of films, got the degree, and was like, I'm done. I'm done with the movie industry. I can't do that. But he went into that for a reason. He was in plays and stuff as a kid. His dad was a thespian. All of us in our family have some sort of dramatic acting streak a little bit. So we grew up watching movies. My dad would edit movies like VHS to VHS so that he could watch all the movies he wanted with kids around. And RoboCop is one of these. So I think the last time I watched this movie, I think I was 5 or 7. And it's been like 30 years since I watched this movie. And I've just wanted to watch it again. So that's why I recommended it. I was blown away by how freaking violent this movie was, but also how salient and like prophetic it was.
Oh, man.
I feel like this was a really slimy movie. I feel like it was a really slimy movie. I'm glad that this one popped up.
So I have one word to describe this whole movie, and it was the one that kept popping in my head every time a scene or someone got killed. I was like, it's unhinged. This is the most unhinged movie I think I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, there's so many scenes that I'm watching it, and it almost feels like they were filming the scene and they were like, what if his head blew up even bigger? Okay, like what if the guy, after he's peeing at the toilet and he has to get out of there, and we show him peeing in his pants. So many scenes that they were just like, well, we just made this bigger and more intense and more gory and more everything. That's kind of the way it felt like. Like there were so many moments where I was like, I can't see them writing this scene and being like, yep, this is it. This is the final cut of this scene. It's going to be great. But yeah, this was a wild movie, and I have a lot of thoughts on it, to be honest.
I was all in literally the first second the music starts, right before the outdated, like totally 1980, late 80s RoboCop. Just it's like so abrupt. It's just RoboCop right in front. No intro credits. Just straight into this news segment. And I was all in. I loved it so much. Prophetic is the right word to use because everything that they were going over in the news, I'm like, dude, was this filmed yesterday?
This is happening today.
Yeah. There's like a scene showing the astronauts and some sort of like peril that this astronaut crew's in. I was like, that happened last month. This other thing about some other country threatening to bomb another country. I was like, that was yesterday.
Yeah.
And then cops being killed and just anything. I couldn't believe how, it's timeless.
I'm waiting for the satellite to just like cause a fire in California now.
I know, oh my gosh. No, I actually really loved their tagline. It was like, give us 30, give us 3 minutes and we'll give you the world.
I know.
I was honestly like, dang, that's pretty awesome. Like, I would tune into that. And it's also kind of interesting because let's face it, like, even I fall into this. Like, most of the time, I get the way I get news is I'm scrolling through Reddit and I see a a headline and I read it and then I read a couple comments. Then I'm like, okay, cool. I know everything that's happening.
I think continuing on the media thing, there's that recurring stupid show with the girls and the like pervert dude, and I buy that for $1. And I was like, this is absolutely the Lego movie. Honey, where's my pants?
Wait, what does it say? What does it say about me that I love that movie though?
No comment.
There's some really cool. I watched it for a second time. Well, actually, it was a third time just today, just kind of prepping for the episode. But the emphasis on all the TV and all the screens and everything, just I loved it. But like, there's like a scene like right before Murphy comes in and arrests the guys, right before he gets killed. But they're watching TV and they're just laughing their asses off. They're just pointing at it and laughing, and like it was great how they just TV like controls everyone. A theme going into the next episode that we record.
I literally was just thinking that, like, I don't like the next movie we're doing is They Live, and I've never seen it, but I know a basic concept of it. And you talking about this, I'm like, I feel like we're gonna do a lot of like connections between these two episodes. It's gonna be interesting.
But yeah, lots of similarities.
All right, have you guys heard of the concept of the fourth turning?
I'm not joining your church, bro.
So similar to everything, everything that I'm going to say is absolutely not nuanced. There's way more nuance to this. It's very interesting, but I always approach films and stuff with, you know, the structures that I pay attention to, and I think in systems and stuff. So, and another caveat is that every model is wrong. This is a model. It is wrong. It's not nuanced enough to capture everything about this. But it is a useful lens, right? It's a useful lens to see the world and media and things through. So super high level is there were two, I believe, anthropologists that were writing a series of books in the 90s. There were one book called Generations that came out in 91, and then another book called The Fourth Turning that I believe was 97. And what they were doing is they were looking back in time and found a pattern. They weren't looking for a pattern, but they found this pattern that about every 90 years, the world seems to go in a complete cycle that repeats. There's 4 turnings within the complete cycle. And the first turning starts right after a huge crisis, like massive world ending, upturning kind of crisis. Those people are very unified because after this massive crisis, the world had to come together, and they're very unified people, right? And they're called the prophets. There's these names applied to them, the prophets. And then their kids are raised by these prophets, right? I can't remember what the next group is called. They grow up and rebel and react to their parents' like unity and like conservative nature and stuff like that. So then they act out all crazy, and then they have kids, and their kids start rebelling against the lack of parenting. So then they start trying to like recollect the world. That third generation is part of the upheaval. And then the fourth turning is when the world is so crazy and it's off the rails, and there's just another a world ending kind of crisis, and the world comes together, solves the problem, and the cycle repeats. In this thesis, we're in the fourth turning right now, and we're coming to a head for some insanity, right? And you can feel that in the world today. And so the book is really interesting to read. If you ever go on YouTube and listen to theses. You'll find how like prescient it feels. So this movie was created at the very beginning of the third turning, and I find it really interesting to look at this movie as a cultural lens. Like this movie, more than anything, while interesting and like dramatic and over the top and like such an artifact of its time, I think more than anything, it captures the undercurrent culture of that time, them projecting forward to what the logical extreme of what they were seeing the world could become. And they were right, because we're towards the end of the fourth turning and we can just see what's happening, right? A little bit of things that are in there is, so this whole cycle, all 4 turnings, started at the end of World War II. That was the previous massive world-ending thing. Then the next generation, the silent generation, gave birth to the boomers, And the boomers in this movie are represented by Lewis, the young, like idealistic, humanized cop.
Mhm.
That is the boomer generation. And she embodies the boomer generation ideals.
Yeah.
And Murphy is the older cop coming in, and he represents the strict, conservative, trust government, trust people. The world's okay. We're here to just keep peace. He's the silent generation that came out of World War II. He's the generation that's represented of the old world, and he gets absolutely ripped into this new world of dehumanization, automation, technology advances, and he can't keep up, but he gets forced to be that. And so it's this tension not only of human versus machine, but silent generation versus boomer generation. The silent generation gave birth to hippies, and hippies gave birth to these like boomers and like Gen X. So like, you know, the 50-year-olds right now. But so I find it really interesting that not only are they embodying and representing their specific generations, but they're also projecting forward, like, how is this all going to come to a head? And we're just basically dealing with the consequences of all that in the future. So anyway, that's my philosophical foundation about how I approach this movie and how it tends to be so prophetic, I think. And also is so interesting to see, like, when a boomer is a young, idealistic person that's changing the world, how do they view the world and what are they going to do to try to fix the world with their thing? What are their long-term visions of what that could look like if it's left unchecked? So the young artists that are sounding a warning call, what's that warning call to the future? And that's what we watched.
You know, as you were talking, I actually kind of made a little realization about this movie. So as I was watching it, I was like, okay, I don't think there's a moment where it tells you what year it is, right?
No.
So, but it seems to be set in the future, you know, the future of that time. But as I was like, I guess it's in the future because there's robots and things like that. And I realized that the only thing that's actually progressed in this movie time-wise is weapons. Like that's the only thing that's actually, you know, considered futuristic in this movie. It's the RoboCop, it's the automatic, you know, the big giant guns, it's all that stuff. But everything else is set in the time period that the movie is in. And I was like, whoa,
that's really cool. Thank you for that. That's so dark.
It is. It's kind of crazy to think about it. But yeah, like even just the scene that's behind you guys right now. Right now, what's going on is he's getting turned into actual RoboCop, and it's actually my favorite scene in the whole movie, by the way. But like you're watching and you're like, okay, this is all like pretty like normal hospital grade equipment. There's nothing fancy about it. There's no futuristic anything. There's no anything. And it's like, oh, the only thing that's advanced is weaponry. That's it. That's the only thing.
Very prophetic. Great observation. Here's what I have to add. The nudity was very necessary. That was a note that I took. There's this shot where all the cops are getting dressed and there's some female cops and you get a little side boob. And I don't think unnecessary nudity is cool. I don't like it. I think it's a trick.
Yeah, I feel like if it's objectification, if it's not there specifically called out as objectification, I don't feel like it's necessary.
Exactly. And
this was not either.
Exactly.
This
is a team of police officers. There's no sexual anything involved. This is get the job done. And I was like, thank you. I love a good boob with no expectations.
So honestly, there's two things about that scene I really liked. So one is, well, actually not really something I love, but one thing I noticed, there was one of the cops, he walked into the shower and he still had his jeans on and his shirt was off. And I was like, that guy, I know that feeling of wearing jeans and being in a humid room. And that feels so uncomfortable. Like it's the worst feeling in the world. I just, like literally he walked in and I was like, I feel so uncomfortable for that guy right now. The other thing is, I think you're right, Ren. I feel like what's great about that scene is it feels very brotherly. It feels they're connected. And I think it's actually especially emphasized in the fact we open up into that. They're talking about, hey, like, I think it's like 9 cops have been killed and they're waiting to hear on the status of one of them. The police sergeant comes in, he takes the name tag off and he's like, all right, guys, I expect everybody who is off duty to be at the funeral. This guy's going to collect donations, so on and so forth. And you're like, okay, this is good feeling. And then you go to the corporate scene next. And literally, by the way, this scene of when he brings in the giant automatic robot and he's like, here, just hold this gun and threaten this giant thing. And then ends up killing that dude. Most unhinged thing I've ever seen. It blew my mind, honestly. But the thing was, so the guy gets killed. he's laying on top of the new Detroit City, like, mini model, which is, nice and symbolic there. But the thing is, like, he gets killed and they're all like, we're so disappointed that the robot didn't work. Man, that's rough. And they just don't give a crap that one of the guys they're working with just got murdered in front of them. They just do not care. And I think that was just a really nice contrast between the two things. It's like, cop murdered, it's a big deal. Everyone cares. Guy in corporate died. No one gives a shit.
Okay, so third turning stuff, right? So what the upheaval is reacting against through the 80s is, so it started if you look at when the 80s or when in the 80s the third turning started, is about mid 80s, 1985. 1987 was a stock market crash. This was an era of deregulation, money deregulation, stuff like that. 80s is defined by this massive corporate greed and the distrust that comes with that. When the government, the corporations, every large institution is basically like put a knife in everybody's back. Mm-hmm. The trust is eroding for the first time. And so looking back 30 years ago, 35 years ago at when this movie was made, it's hard to imagine a world where everyone trusted each other. But they did. Pre-80s, like there were problems, but like the world was more unified than it is today. This is like normal. This is our MO right now. Like nobody trusts anything, especially governments or corporations, depending on what side of the aisle you tend to lead. You don't trust either, but you trust one more than the other because you got to trust somebody, right? But nobody trusts institutions larger than like 5 people at this point. And so this movie was really showcasing the difference between the honest, like when Murphy shows up at the precinct and it's just chaos, and he's like, "Oh, welcome to the precinct. We work for a living here." He's like, put your big boy panties on. We have a real job to do here, unlike your cush job over there. And that's just like the beat cop working man.
Welcome to hell.
Right. And then that, like you said, Harrison, that contrasts perfectly with the suits up at the top, soulless people. They have nothing. They're doing nothing. They're doing nothing positive for sure. They're just slushing money around, making bigger and bigger weapons, clapping, kissing each other's butts. And then the guy dies and it's like soulless against like the other thing is technology was pulling all of the money out of the Rust Belt. It was taking it out of Detroit and it was moving it over to California. This was the beginning of that. So tech was stealing that. Silicon Valley was really young. And so Detroit being the filming location of this was like this once great car making, manufacturing, rich city is now extremely polarized. The equality is totally polarized and everything let's just take what's happening right now and extremely polarize it and create an artistic vision of that. So you've got the corporate stock market soulless shills up at the top, and you've got the hardworking people that are just getting destroyed by crime because the institutions don't care about the people.
I feel like they did a great job of comparing like Clarence, which by the way, I find it really funny that Clarence is like, I don't know, he's like the drug kingpin of Detroit and he looks like a high school PE teacher. Like I don't know. I just found that really interesting. But I think that actually kind of goes forward to compare the corporate world and Clarence and what he's doing, because I feel like you could take Clarence, clean him up a little bit, put him in a suit, and he would fit perfectly just fine in the corporate. On the top shelf, I feel like there's not much difference between them. It just depends on what you're wearing and how you talk and how you act, basically.
Yeah, it took me a few scenes to get over seeing Red from that 70s show. Murdering. Yeah, he's an excellent villain in this movie. He's awesome.
Why don't you talk about characters a little bit, Ren? I know you got some notes.
Well, I have to get this up. So my 9-year-old walked in as I was watching this as Ed 209 as Ed 209 was being introduced. And he goes, "This looks like the wrong trousers, Wallace and Gromit." I was like, dude, good call, first of all. And second of all, yeah, like it's very aged, but I watched it, I like rewound it a couple of times for the technology and everything that they did with the special effects. It's actually really impressive how they implemented it into the film. There's one part where I think RoboCop is trying to arrest someone. Ed 209 comes and he's running from Ed 209, and clearly they storyboarded every cut scene, everything going on to make this work right. But it shows Ed 209 kind of like behind him, and it's the scene where he's going down the stairs. And I loved how they implemented, I can't remember if it was like a horse neighing sound or they basically anamorphed or animalorphized anamorphosized Ed 209. And I love the part where it walks up to the steps and it kind of feels it reminded me of the ostrich in Fantasia when he kind of dips his toe in the water.
It's his toe in there, yes.
Yeah, but I love how they just kind of made it that much more intelligent by giving it kind of like animal instincts a little bit. I thought that was a cool little flavor they added.
It reminded me of the Bumble. Bumbles bounce, trying to go into the water.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
No, I noticed that when it first got introduced, and I feel like it had like, man, I kind of want to go back and watch it now, but I feel like it had like a lion roar or something like that. And I was like, this is an interesting addition to it to, I don't know, give it life or give it something, but it made it uncomfortable, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it was like, oh, like
comply in under 30 seconds or whatever. And then it changed. Yeah. That part's crazy. How many bullets he laid into that dude's body was nuts.
So I want to go back to what you were saying, just thinking about how to film that scene, because
it's excellent.
Like we're going like Who Framed Roger Rabbit level of composites between scenes. You know, so this technology was like invented for Mary Poppins, right? Like how do you composite something on top of another image when you just have film? You don't have a computer to do this digitally. Like in the movie Alien, they do a lot of scenes where they do like forced perspective to change the scale and stuff like that. Those are all great. But this movie was like an animated claymation figure timed up with a human actor. They had to film them separately. Ed 209 or whatever his name is not life-size scale, right? Like this is a miniature. I mean, you know, like a miniature, probably like 2 feet tall or 1 foot tall or something like that. But still, like the planning that went into something like that to not only make the claymation animation look good and be intimidating and the right camera perspectives and all that kind of stuff to make it all fit, but also to composite the two so that they felt like they were in the same room together. Yeah. That the lighting was matched so well and stuff like that. Like in freaking sane cinematography and post-production. Like good job, late 80s post-production. Like
yeah. And like to our eye, you know, it kind of looks kind of goofy at first, at least to me. I'm like, like someone could laugh at it. But then when you really take a step back, like I said, just you appreciate it for what it is. When this came out, it's excellent. You know, talking about the same scene, it starts upstairs, goes all the way down this building. He falls like into a parking lot. And if you think about where the camera brought you, that whole time, I don't know the right term, but it's like your spatial awareness of where you are, where the camera's the whole way. When it was over, I was like, whoa, like that was awesome.
I also appreciated how he was like up in Elysium, which was a big lie, you know, and then he just basically fell all the way down to hell and just got more of the same. He got it from up there where you expected to get it, and then he got it from his friends.
Dude, this is a reoccurring theme. We got the mound dweller in the Northman. We got Jumanji going down into the snake pit. We got going down into
you mean Jungle Book?
Jungle Book. Sorry. Yeah, just going down into the depths of hell is like where you need to go to come out on top.
That's a really cool connection you made, Ren. I like that. I think this is actually one of my favorite part of the podcast, is looking at the previous movies we watched and be like, oh my gosh, like it's the same thing. Like, I don't know, that's really cool.
Yeah, it all strings together. I just want to say I love every scene, every first person shot of RoboCop's vision, and when he's going through the surgery, when he opens up, especially that scene where you don't really know what's going on, but time's obviously happening. And like it shows all the employees and they're kind of like talking to him. And then they're like at a Christmas party and they're kind of like drunk and playing with him. And then, I don't know, I thought that was really cool. And then the bad guy from Blank Check, he's really good and he has a very satisfying death. But yeah, he's so
the guy from Blank Check.
Yeah, I know. I can remember Allie, my wife, she mentioned that, and I was like, "You're right. That's it."
Oh, so another connection, by the way. Last podcast talking about Detroit Rock City, I brought up Save the Cat, written by Blake Snyder. Blake Snyder was the scriptwriter for Blank Check.
Wow.
Oh, okay. So tell me, guys, what was your favorite everyone is shooting at RoboCop scene? Because I couldn't believe how many of those there were. You had the one in the drug lab, you had the one where it was the cop shooting him, and then the original one where he gets killed. And I feel like there's probably a fourth one in there somewhere. But out of those three, which one would you like? Oh, that was pretty good.
The hand exploding. That one I was like, okay, this movie's not messing around. Like, and that was already after Ed 209 disintegrated that dude. I can't remember where I've heard this, but like some people have made the analogy of like our bodies are basically just bags of blood and some bones kind of connecting it all. And I was thinking the amount of bullets that they shot through Murphy, he like would have been just a pile of, it just would have been liquid, straight up goo. There was so many bullets flying through him. I don't know how they pieced him together to make him back into RoboCop, but
yeah, the amount of bullets that got shot throughout this whole movie, I was just like you're watching and you're like, okay, they're still going. Okay, they're not out of ammo. They're still going. Like, it blew my mind.
To answer your question, I think my favorite was the initial scene where he gets killed. You know, we've been talking about that one, but I had the same thought. I was like, how many bullets are how many shotgun blasts from 3 feet away are they going to put through this guy's chest? And he's like, he still has like air in his lungs, you know, and then he hits his knees. Hey, boss, he's not dead yet. You know, and like, okay, let's like, that was insane. Took me out of it, but it was also like the movie was so unhinged. I was like, okay, this is the flavor we're going for. But then to contrast that to what he was like when he was the RoboCop, it's like it didn't matter. They could shoot him with whatever. He was just invincible. You know, it wasn't until he had Directive 4 stopping him that he had any kryptonite at all. I just loved how a lot of the film was like, if this was a horror movie and RoboCop was Michael Myers in Halloween, it would be terrifying. So he's like the Michael Myers, not to amoral teenagers, but he's the Michael Myers to like drug people and stuff like that. And so it was like, this guy has no flaws. His only flaw is that and it's not even a flaw. It's like he's human with this robot body, and that's sad. That's his only flaw, you know, like he's such a noble, good elder, like this role model. Like at the beginning, I love it. Harrison, in the last podcast, you said, didn't they have like RoboCop toys and stuff? Yeah. Like, yes. There's a line that Murphy says at the beginning when they're like drinking coffee right after, you know, right before they went to their first job together, right? He's like, kids need a role model. And I was like, yeah. That's why RoboCop had toys. They need a role model. They need somebody to look up to and be cool. Yeah. And we do that with Star Wars. We do that with Iron Man, you know, Captain America. Like we do that still today. And RoboCop was that in the late 80s.
I took one note on just going back to the character of Clarence. He has this evil genius scene. One of his henchmen, the guy with that crazy laugh, he shows up with the 5000 SUX, this vehicle that he stole brand new off the car lot. He shows up with it. And there's this moment where he's kind of one-upping Clarence. And Clarence, I think he understands that. And he starts smiling. He goes, I like it. And he gets out that gun and destroys it. And for some reason, the henchmen they're just like, ha ha ha, they laugh it off. And next thing you know, they're all following whatever Clarence does. Because Clarence had to kind of even the playing field and just kind of stay into this evil hierarchy that I'm on top now. You don't have the better car than me.
Ren, I'm not gonna lie, you just blew my mind. That is so cool. Because I'm serious. That was another scene that I was like, what is this? Like, what is happening? Yeah. Like, there's just chaos and they're just blowing everything up just for kicks and everything. And I was just like, I just don't. Okay, like I'm gonna just as a quick little future of this movie didn't click with me a ton, but it's really interesting talking about it and finding all these things. So talking about it is definitely making this movie a little better for me. That was really cool. I like that.
That happened with Detroit Rock City for me.
Makes sense. No, that makes sense.
And, it happened to me with Jungle Book, I got to admit. Jungle Book was freaking awesome, dude.
I love it.
I want to call out that scene where the bad guy with those mutton chops, I can't remember his name, but he's driving that truck, goes right into the toxic waste. he flies out and dude, the melting of the skin, that is disgusting. And like pretty believable, honestly. Because in my mind, I'd probably imagine that it would just like burn you and really hurt, but it's like a slow, sludgy, sort of melty thing that it kind of does to him. I thought that was awesome.
And then to finish it off, he just gets absolutely creamed by Clarence and turns into water.
Right in the windshield. Oh my god.
That was it. I think that's what it was. Is it was like liquid, like he turned into water, like you said, and it just like fell down the windshield like it was raining. I was like, that's so disgusting.
Like in the first X-Men movie, when like that guy turns into water, it just like pops.
And then there was a part that was really satisfying. I don't know if you guys felt this, but when they're in that press room with all the where Ed 209 first blew that guy up, but then they go back there later in the movie for the like finale. So it kind of starts and ends in the same spot. But I loved how he starts playing that DVD with the confessional on all those TVs. I was like, dude, that's awesome. Like earlier, I can't remember. I mean, they watched something on it, but it was so cool how they brought it all the way back into the finale. And I don't know about you guys, but when RoboCop's kind of aiming his gun, I didn't understand that he couldn't attack him until he was not a part of the company. So when he fires him and he blasts him, so satisfying.
That was my favorite line in the whole movie. Thank you. Boom.
That's a scene. That's also a scene that this seems to be coming up a couple times in the past couple episodes where scenes like that come up, and I feel like a weaker director would have made that scene a lot worse. But I feel like they did a great job here. I feel like a weaker director would have had RoboCop tell the old man, or like, yeah, I guess that's, by the way, I think that's his actual title in IMDb. It's the old man, the guy who actually runs everything. I think a weaker director would have had the RoboCop be like, sir, you need to fire him before I can shoot him, or something like that. But I feel like the old man just kind of like clicked, and he's like, I know what I have to do, and he did it.
Yeah, and then elephant in the room, the falling scene right after is just unnecessarily bad. Like, I mean, great, but like his arms are so long, it looks so stupid. In fact, I think I've seen that scene before, like being made fun of, like probably on a YouTube video or something, of bad special effects. But I didn't know it was from this movie because I'd never seen it.
I'm pretty sure we also saw the exact same scene in The Untouchables.
Yep. No, I was just saying, yeah, we have the Untouchables fall. There's actually one in Jungle Book 2 when he kicks the guy off of the cliff and he's like, oh.
Yes.
And then we have this one. So we got some really good falls. We can make a little compilation clip. It'll be great.
I will say, mad props to the audio editors. No Wilhelm scream in this movie.
Very impressive. They didn't cop out. We're kind of past this point, but I'll just shout out this scene. So they're going in, they're investigating that like industrial place for the first time, and let's see, her name's Lewis. She's sneaking in there. She catches one of the henchmen just pissing on a wall, and then she pops her gum, and then he stops peeing like instantly. I don't know why. And then he just kind of gives her the side eye. He's like, "Yeah, what's up? What are you doing?" There's moments in movies where you start up a movie and you're watching and you're trying to, and if you don't know anything about it, you're watching and you're looking for these moments to kind of tell you, okay, what kind of movie is this? And that scene right there was like, oh, this is the kind of movie this is.
I loved her line after she gets shot and falls into the like mud pit at the end. Oh, yeah. And then everybody's dead and Murphy's like, under the wreckage. And she's like, Murphy, I messed up. I was like, yeah, you're messed up.
I want to call out one other scene too. It's when Clarence, I love when he pulls the grenade with his tongue.
That was pretty impressive. I also like the fact that they put a ton of effort into making sure that RoboCop's food looked like actual crap. Like when they squeeze it out of it, they're like, look, all he eats is this. It tastes just like baby food. And you're just like, oh, like I had a visceral reaction to that one for sure.
I had a visceral reaction to the music that they play in the dance club. I wrote down, what the hell is this? Like, it was like the worst music I've ever heard. Trying to sound futuristic dance.
I want to talk about that scene a little bit.
Okay.
So I have a couple of things to say about this scene. All right. All right. So
I'm ready.
This movie is trying to project forward what the future is going to be like. kind of, right? So like you said, it's this like, what's the music going to be like in the future? And it's just basically like an 80s cocaine party and stuff. But then this cop shows up and nobody stops. Like every other movie, the cop shows up and everyone's like, ah, you know, and he's like, give me the perpetrator, you know, whatever the case. Not this time. He just comes in and like grabs the guy by the hair and drags him out. And everyone's like, right on, man. And they keep dancing. Okay, so everyone gives me guff for liking the Super Mario Brothers movie that came out in the 80s. And that movie is good, not because it's good, but because it's Blade Runner and RoboCop in a Mario setting. How badass is that, guys? There's no reason for that movie to be that. And it is. And they took it all the way, all with like crazy 80s futuristic dance scenes. We should cinema slime it just so we can go like, oh yeah, that scene was in RoboCop. Oh yeah, that scene was in Blade Runner. It's
crap.
so funny.
You're right. Maybe you've said this, but I hadn't seen RoboCop, and now I've seen RoboCop and Blade Runner, and you are totally right. Totally right, dude. Like, but just with Mario and Luigi instead. That's hilarious.
Like clearly they did not know their demographics. Yeah. But don't give me trash that the movie is a problem. The only reason people don't like it is because it's Mario and Luigi, and it's like, that's not my Mario.
Our expectations ruined the movie. The movie didn't ruin it.
The movie is a parody on the satire.
It's our fault.
Yes, it's your fault that you hate the movie.
Fault. I feel like we need to make a YouTube video that's just comparing all three of those movies and just being like, it's the exact same thing.
I was also, when Clarence is getting stabbed in the neck with the javelin, there was no other way to do that because everything else had been done. I just felt like the good old javelin was just perfect.
Oh yeah. No, honestly, I was kind of it was funny watching that scene. So I'm like, okay, I know Clarence is going to die. I don't know how he's going to die. And I was going through all these different scenarios and trying to figure out what it was going to be. I really thought the gal cop was going to end up shooting him and he was just going to explode into a million gut balls of blood, you know? And then when he just stabbed him, I was like, that's about right. There you go. I'm fine with this. And then when you look at RoboCop afterwards and he's just covered in blood, I was just like, oh God, like.
Yeah, it was a balanced death. It was nice.
Mm-hmm.
I just once again want to call back, as a cultural artifact, these kinds of movies were new. We grew up, like we were born after this movie was made.
Yeah.
Right? Terminator, RoboCop, Predator, Alien, Blade Runner, all these like defining 80s, early 90s action movies did not exist before this. This was new. When the Marvel movies came out and we were like, this is a new kind of movie, you know, in like 2007 or whatever it was, like that changed cinema. And this was a similar time, like 20 years earlier, cinema was changed because of RoboCop, because of Terminator. Like there was no like shoot you in the face 900 times and just blood splattering everywhere. Like Ed 209 just decimating that like shill up and having him, like you said, fall on Delta City. That had never been done before. And so we've seen every variation of that since, but this was the first. And like, man, mad kudos.
I've always had this idea, and I'll never do it because it doesn't make any sense, but I've always had this idea of like, I want to sit down and watch like, not every movie, but watch a ton of movies in release order just to see kind of the transition of like, oh, when this movie came out, things changed. When this movie happened, things changed. You know, I just find that to be a very interesting thing. It would take so much time and take up so much of my brain, but it would be so cool to see it.
I've done that a little bit with classical music, going back like chronological, so you can kind of hear different music elements that are implemented as time goes on. It's fascinating, and I've totally thought about. I mean, I think it might get a little stale after a while, but yeah, going back and moving forward is fascinating. But yeah, I don't really have much to add other than I'm really happy that we watched this because I just had this idea that this movie was like laughably lame. And I may have started to watch this at one time in my life, but the no intro and just going to the news, I was just like, what the hell? Whatever. And I turned it off. Like I have a faint memory of doing that, but excellent movie. So by the time I have a complaint and an experience to share. So by the end of this movie, I was like floating. Like I freaking loved it. It was incredible. And I don't know how you guys watched it, but I was watching it on Max, previously known as HBO. And I don't know about you guys, but I love basking in that euphoric feeling when the credits roll. And Max needs to change the way that they play their movies, because as soon as the credits roll, it like shrinks off into the top left corner and it shoots these other movie recommendations to you immediately. And I remember that just really pissed me off. So Max, fix that. That's annoying. Don't do it. Just give us the benefit of the doubt. Give us 30 seconds or like even like 10 seconds to just sit and bask in the credits.
What happened was is you were sitting there watching this piece of cultural art. It disappeared, and this dude shows up. I buy that for $1. And everyone in the room like,
Exactly. Yeah, it didn't ruin the movie. It ruined my mood.
Yeah.
But yeah, they get word of this podcast. I'm sure they will.
In 2019, there was a Kickstarter to raise money to build a life-size robot or RoboCop statue in Detroit. They raised $67,000 to bring the project to life. 2,718 backers. I do not believe that this RoboCop statue actually exists. Last I heard, it was not actually made.
What a crime. Oh my gosh.
Like legitimate, like there's the Rocky statue at the top of the stairs, and it's just this like city cultural icon. They were like, we need that in Detroit with RoboCop. And I don't know that it's actually happened, but the money was raised for it.
It's no Rocky statue, but that's pretty cool in Detroit.
So what was your ooziest scene? What was the scene that clung to your brain and you kept thinking about it?
This is the scene that has followed me since I was 5 years old, is RoboCop shooting the dude in the crotch through the girl's skirt.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about that.
What an insane scene.
What a wild moment. So fun fact about that scene, actually, him shooting through her skirt to hit him was a spur of the moment decision they made when filming that scene. He was supposed to just shoot him in the head and it was supposed to graze the girl's cheek. And apparently the director was filming and he was like, wait a minute, there's space in between her legs through her skirt. And I could blow his dick off. Let's do it. And I guess they just went for it. They were like, this is perfect. I love it. That trivia right there, for me personally, like defines this movie. I feel like it was, like I said, I feel like it was a lot of like, let's just do this instead. It's better. And it's like, okay, sure.
Because what's it going to be like in the future? That plus more.
The scene that clung to me was right after Murphy gets killed. And the scene of him in the hospital and it's zoomed in on his face. And then the scene afterwards with him waking up and seeing different, clips of people coming up to talk to him, that drunk lady coming up and kissing him on the face, things like that. I feel like that was one of the few moments in this movie where I had a chance to actually care about anybody in the movie. And it kind of worked. It didn't really cling to me. Honestly, I think the main problem I had with this movie was I was watching it and I was about 70% of the way through and I was like, I don't care about anyone. Every single character in this could die right now and it wouldn't even affect me. That was kind of my main problem. And I feel like that scene I was talking about just previously, I think that was like the opportunity to make me feel something for Murphy. And it just, I don't know, it just didn't really click with me. I kind of wish we had just a little bit longer before he turned into RoboCop to actually figure out who he is. And I just feel like we didn't get that. But that scene was still definitely a very strong attempt to make me feel something for him. So for me, honestly, this movie ended and it was like a 1.5 for me. I'm not going to lie. I was just like,
really?
It was really low. It was really, really low for me. I was just like, I guess there was some cool stuff. I liked Clarence, that actor's performance. I thought that was absolutely incredible. But here's actually an example. So, back in first episode, we talked about things that really matter to me when it comes to rating a movie high. Is characters are one of the most important things to me. And just as a little connection, I was watching through Walking Dead, and we got to, I think it's season 3, and Rick's wife, the main character, his wife dies, and he's crying about it. And I was sitting there, and I was like, I don't give a shit that she just died, and I feel like I should, and I don't. And I haven't watched an episode since because I was like, I just don't care. And that was kind of my main problem with this because I just didn't care about any of the characters really. But I would say that, so yeah, it was like a 1.5 after I watched it. But honestly, like I feel like talking about it and bringing up some of the cool things about it and some of the more interesting, more in-depth things about the movie, I can bring it up to like a 2.5. So like a full star up. But like,
Okay.
but honestly, like I like Detroit Rock City more than this movie.
That's so interesting.
You were kind of like this during Clue. It's like I don't want to be a downer, but it is just really how I felt
Yeah,
about
yeah.
it.
No.
So Murphy got shot, and you're like, they're like partying there, eating these big, giant nothing burgers.
kind of honestly. I was just like, okay, this is happening. Like any character could have died at any moment, and I'd be like, all right, I guess that happened, and I would have moved on.
I'll also add, and this is just a bash. So, like, I've worked in video games a lot, and I know how hard it is to make video games. This is not a critique on the people that make video games. But Mass Effect 2 tries to pull this RoboCop thing at the very beginning, where it's like he dies during the opening scene, and then they piece him back together, and he's like the new cyborg Commander Shepard. Absolutely does nothing in comparison to RoboCop. It is a hollow beast compared to RoboCop that did it right first.
I'm guessing 5 stars from you.
I'd probably put it a 4.5 or 5.
I find myself giving older movies, and older being 80s movies, I think I give them a lot of slack when it comes to my critique. And newer movies, I dissect and I nitpick, and I am kind of a snob about it, and I'm working on it. But yeah, honestly, when this movie was over, I was like, fucking awesome. Like I had nothing that I didn't like about it by the time it was over. And yeah, you could bring up some stuff, but like just the way, I don't know, I had a great time living in this disgusting future and I just found so many parallels with today, and I was just like, I was all in. I give it 5 stars for me. Like I love this movie.
Damn.
I thought, like in my head, I was just like, okay, yeah, Scott liked it. Cool. I know this movie. I know this movie. It's not in the top 100 movies of all time. It can't be that good. Like I had a great time, and I loved it.
So I think if we bring it back to like Harrison did, back to what makes a movie matter to me, right? How long am I going to think about it? And I think this movie, I watched it, and like the whole movie, I kept pausing it over and over and over, and I just had to keep going and opening up the 4th turning book again. So, okay, so in comparison to Detroit Rock City, I understand why that movie matters to someone that was their experience growing up. It's a coming of age movie, and all coming of age stories have similar themes. And it's like, what did you do to come of age, right? That was not my life, but it was Ren's, right? And so it hit Ren harder than it hit me, but I'm not like heartless. I know what a good coming of age story does, right? And means. And I felt it. They did a good job. So I'm not heartless. Like I could see like what it meant, and I felt it watching that movie. And so it was like, yeah, the star rating went up when I was like, no, they made the movie right, even if it wasn't a movie for me, right? And this movie, I feel like, was made for me 35 years ago, 40 years ago. They were like, no, future, understand what you're going to go through. And the fact that I feel like I have been warned, the fact that I feel like I have something to see or avoid, or to try and build a better world out of, made this movie important to me. And I'll think about it for years to come because of that. And, you can take any kind of movie, a Saving Private Ryan or anything like that, to look to the past to see the future. This one was the past portraying a future that's not real, but got so much right. And I mean, it's a good warning. I feel like a better person because I watched it.
I do find it interesting that this is a movie that, like I said, I gave it like a 2.5, especially after this podcast and talking more about it. But it's always so interesting because if someone came up to me and said, "Hey, should I watch RoboCop?" I'd be like, "Hell yeah, you should watch RoboCop." Like,
Yeah.
it's just so weird. Like, yeah, I feel like there's always 2 questions to every movie we watch. It's like, what did you personally rate it, and would you recommend it? Ren, what, you just watched Videodrome and you're like, it was the most incredible body horror movie I've ever seen in my entire life. You should not watch it. And for me, I'm like, RoboCop, honestly, didn't really click with me. Some great moments, but it didn't click. You should definitely watch it. Isn't that?
Yeah,
It's so interesting to me.
That's the Northman for me, which has still been the slimiest movie, though RoboCop's a good second so far.
Yeah.
Like Northman, I'm like, guys, I watched this incredible movie. Have you ever seen The Northman? Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know if you'd like it.
But you should watch it and you'll figure it out if you like it. So, guys, just kind of curious, especially after what you said, Ren, do you think that we have higher standards for newer movies because maybe it's because, like, hey, we have more technology, there's better writers, things like that? And do we give slack to older movies because it's like, well, it was back in the 80s, like that's all they had? Like, do you think there is that dynamic going on?
I do. I wish I had more time to think about this, but I always think of just like where was the world? Where was media? Where were like the social conscious? Where was that when this came out? Because that does influence what's put into the movie, the subject, the way it's delivered, the direction that the art is put in, all of that. It all depends on whether for good or for worse, it's tailored to that time. So yeah, I think I do. And I don't think I realized that until I said that a couple minutes ago. But like some newer movies, just one little thing, like if the special effects don't look like great to me, but it's a new movie, I'm just like, what else are they gonna half-ass? Because this is already, I don't know. I gotta work on it, but
For me, I think time is a really good filter. I think tradition is a good, like, if we go to an extreme, tradition is a good indicator of what's valuable, whether we choose to adopt it or not. But like the oldest diet in the world is Mediterranean diet and wine and water, nothing else. Like
Salt.
if you ate that, you'd be freaking healthy. And it's the oldest like the oldest diet for a reason, right? Films, all art, to be real. I do not have time to give to modern film unless it's heavily recommended. And time is a recommender. So the older the movie is and the more recommended it is while still being old, it's more worth watching to me. I might not like it, and this goes for modern movies as well as for older movies, but with time as a recommender, the older the time, the higher the recommendation. If it's still being recommended today, there's a reason that it's still recommended. Yeah. And so I am absolutely happy. There are a few movies that I'll just get hyped about because, you know, they're new and stuff, and like it looks cool, or it's like an IP that I like and they haven't destroyed it yet or whatever. Like when Tron Legacy came out, like I pooped freaking Tron Legacy. You know, and stuff like that. You know, like those are getting rarer and rarer as I just get older, and I'm just in a stage where I like running a business. My wife's running a business. I'm trying to work full time. You know, like raising 3 kids. Might have another kid. You know, like we don't know what the future is going to be. I'm trying to save for a house. Like I don't have time. Or like my wife's writing novels. I need to give her space and time to creatively think those and be a sounding board. Like I don't have space for TV shows and movies and stuff like that. So once again, Ren, thank you for being the guy that's making this happen, because like this has been a positive thing in my life, as uncomfortable as it's been to go through these movies that I would never pick, but they're highly recommended by you guys. And I trust your opinions, and I'm learning things from you guys that I would have never watched Detroit Rock City. And Harrison, your take on movies and what matters to you is so dramatically different than mine, and the way that you do articulate it matters to me. I'm like, oh, I missed something. Yeah. And I feel like it's making me stretch and grow and be a better person. The high recommendation, the time, that's all basically this massive like preface to, am I more critical of modern movies? I think technically no, but in practicality I am, just because anything that's come out within the past 5 years, I do not give any Fs. Anything older than that, it's like time, people still talking about it means that it is probably good enough to say, I will spend time with my children and my wife, or I'll watch this movie. And I literally think that when I sit down to watch a thing.
That's awesome.
And like it is an either or opportunity cost. And the higher recommended it is from all different areas, the less critical I'm going to be of the presentation, because I'm going to be looking for something like, why does it survive this long? Yeah. Why has it made it here? Why is Clue still around? Because it's just funny. It's empty. They don't keep their promises, that kind of stuff, but it's just funny. You know,
why do they smell the dog poop 3 times in the beginning? Why? I don't get it.
You know, we like to laugh. We need a comedy. That's it.
Starbase, where no turtle has gone before.
All right, so we're going to transition to this part of the podcast. Basically, what we're doing every month or every other month, we're not quite sure yet, but we're going to pick a movie theme and we're going to pick 4 movies from that theme. We're not very decisive, so we're just going to random draw the topic and then we're going to random draw the movies after we make our list. So we are going to select from 3 categories. You might need to help me, but the first category is mine. It is just a very broad subject. That topic is space. And we're all going to create our own Cinema Slime 5 lists after we pick the category. The second category is, help me out.
So I went with spy. That's the one I picked, like a good spy thriller, something like that, because spy films are great. they're so fun, and I especially, what is it? It's the James Bond like Q scene where they're going through all the different gadgets he gets and everything, and you're like, okay, like when is this gadget going to pop up in the movie? I don't know. I like that anticipation, and I think it's gonna be a fun little. I think it's gonna be fun.
I guess I'll claim animation then.
Yeah. All right, cool. And then animation, which is also, these are all very broad topics, which I kind of love. So, all right, are you ready to do the randomizer?
Let's do it.
I do. I got it on my phone here. You guys can see it in mirror form. Okay, here we go. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Looks like we're going with space. Space. We're going with space films.
So there could be one scene in space, and this movie qualifies for our list. Okay, I wanted to be as broad as possible, and space could even be in the title. Who knows?
There is a space between words.
Right here.
Make the case.
Oh my gosh, what's that? I am gonna veto. What's that movie? There's a space movie that every time it brings up, I'm just like, that sounds terrible. Horizon Dawn, Event Horizon.
Titan AE?
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you don't put Titan AE on your list, it's going on my list.
We already know we're gonna get 2001: A Space Odyssey on there twice.
Yeah,
One from me and one from Ren.
More than likely.
Pretty much. Now I'm excited for this. I'm actually especially excited for this because space is actually a topic that it's interesting to me, but lots of times it doesn't click with me. Like I guess it's more in relation to sci-fi versus fantasy, because sci-fi feels very limitless and very like I don't know what the limit is because there's not a limit. And that's why I prefer fantasy books or fantasy movies, things like this. It's like, okay, I know what they're capable of, but like once we go to space, it's like, who knows what's going to happen? And it's a little uncomfortable, but I think it's going to be fun.
And then for next week, tune in. We're going to be watching They Live.
I forgot that's still in the list.
Let's just end it. Let's just end it here. We'll talk about it all next week.
All right. Peace. Love you, boys.
Bye-bye. Love you.
Love you guys.
Thanks, Harrison. You're the man. That's a wrap, and thanks for hanging out with us. Cinema Slime is a production hosted by Harrison Jensen, Ren Jensen, and Scott Shepard. This episode was mixed, edited, and produced by Harrison with design and art by Ren. There's more slime coming your way, so don't forget to subscribe, share, and drop a comment. You can find us on all your favorite social media platforms with links in the episode notes, and on Patreon, we will have exclusive content and merch. Until next time, go watch a movie.